It is particularly significant, and I felt very, very well served this morning in the readings that we have, because they talk about hope, new beginnings, and new things happening. First of all, in our Old Testament reading this morning, we hear about the work of Ezra and Nehemiah, the two people who will be the architects of the return of God's people following their time of exile in Babylon. They are returning to a land that has been laid waste, city walls that have been broken down, and they stand in Jerusalem with the knowledge that they have to do two things. They have to rebuild the city, and they have to rebuild the people. And it is the rebuilding of the people that we hear about in our reading this morning. While they return to the city of Jerusalem, they hear the words from the book of the law, the writings from God's own scriptures. They are reminded of who they are, what they believe in, and what they hope to build their future upon. And I suppose that's an important message for us this morning, to remind each and every one of us that as we return to the things that we have taken very often in the past for granted, as we return to the fellowship of this church and the opportunities to engage with other families, children, and all those in the extended families that we meet, we are reminded that we are here because we are God's people. We are here because we are blessed through our knowledge of His Word. We are here through the strength and power that is given to us through God's own Holy Spirit. In our gospel reading this morning, we hear about the boy who made good, returning to his own village. Jesus is returning to the village of Nazareth, where he was brought up as a child. And he goes, as we hear, was his practice, to attend the synagogue on the Sabbath. He stands there before all those people, many of whom he knows, many of those among whom he was reared and brought up, many of his own age and older. And as he is there, he's asked to read from the prophet Isaiah. These inspiring words, again Isaiah speaking to people who are on the way home, returning to the things they have taken for granted, and now returning to a new and inspired future. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for He has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim that captives will be released, that the blind will see, that the oppressed will be set free, and that the time of the Lord's favor has come. And then sitting down, Jesus proclaims to all present that that day is now. It is now, because He is with them. A certain row develops. First of all, there's the row that you know sort of happens. He's a great fella, isn't he? He's fantastic. I remember him growing up as a child. You remember Joseph, the carpenter fella. He's the carpenter's son. Sure, you know who he is. Sure, he's one of us, like. He's no better than any of us. The begrudgery starts, you know. We all know about that sort of thing. And then the next thing, of course. He's doing great stuff, though. Did you hear what he's up to? He's healing people now. Healing people now. Is that right? Yes, he is. He's not doing much around here. Doesn't come back here very often. You don't see him pulling in here very often to do a bit of good among us all. And Jesus then, standing among them all, tells them a few home truths. God is not born, or reared, or conditioned, or limited by Nazareth. God's calling to all is to the whole world. He tells them the story of Elijah during a famine, going off to be with a Gentile woman and to look after her, a poor widow woman, to make sure she had enough food in the house and to raise her son to life when he had died. He tells them the story of the healing of the Syrian soldier by Elisha. Naaman is a foreigner, and yet he too is welcomed into the good graces of God himself. God is not limited by where we think he is, what we think he is, or what we think he should be doing. God is his own interpreter, and he is working through our world today, working through good Christian people like us, inspiring us to good and new things every day, but also working through those who may rarely have heard his name mentioned. God is inspiring all people today to a new and more powerful and transforming future. And that's what he's inspiring us to this morning as we come together, as hopefully we reach the end stages of COVID and we move on as a people of God. We have a lesson to learn. We are in the week of prayer for Christian unity, and this week of prayer for Christian unity points us to the fact that God is not Church of Ireland. It may come as a shock, but he isn't. He isn't Presbyterian either, or Baptist. He isn't Roman Catholic, but that God calls all his people to be his followers. And in that sense that we have a common calling, we're being asked each day to recognize all the good things in those we meet, but also to recognize the good we are called to do ourselves. So this morning, as we are letting things relax a little, as we are hopefully returning to new and better things, we're being asked to understand that our world has got wider rather than narrower, that God is asking us to look out as well as to look in, to ask questions of ourselves and to how we will be the church in the future. I'm very conscious again this morning as we meet of all those who are joining with us online, reaching into some hundreds during the week. And just to say to you all that you are part of our story here, that you are part of the journey we have been on over these last 2 years, that your prayers, your actions, and your support has been most deeply felt by us as a Christian family here in Lucan. We hope that you will maintain your links with us. We hope that maybe at some stage you will get the opportunity to be present with us here in this church on a Sunday morning. But whatever our contact is in the future, can we assure ourselves of our prayerful support for you and your prayerful support for us? Today is a day of celebration. It is a day of recognizing, just like our readings, that there is much to be built upon and many new things to be experienced. But through the great grace of God, we celebrate this morning, asking him to guide our path, to instruct our words, to instruct our hands, and to make us his followers in the world in a new and ever-renewing, powerful example.